The first brushstroke. The sun rose over Dubai, casting a golden glow on the Burj Al Arab. The air smelled of paint and the sea. 5 painters stood at the base of the massive structure, their equipment laid out like tools of war. Today, they would begin repainting the iconic sail-shaped hotel, a task requiring precision, teamwork, and nerves of steel. The team gathered around a makeshift table, blueprints spread out. Marcus, the project manager, stood at the head, his sharp eyes scanning the group. To his right was Elena, the lead artist, quiet but fiercely determined. On his left was Jake, the Joker, masking his insecurities with humor. Next to him was Priya, the young tech-savvy engineer, full of enthusiasm but inexperienced. Finally, there was Carlos, the quiet giant, strong and steady but rarely speaking. Marcus cleared his throat. This isn't just another job. One mistake, and we're risking everything. Everyone clear on their roles. Elena nodded. I've got the design specs. Gold at the base, fading to white at the top. It's going to be stunning. Jake smirked. Let's just hope we don't stun the tourists with a paint spill. Priya rolled her eyes. Don't jinx it. One wrong move, and we're in trouble. Carlos remained silent, his arms crossed. Marcus gave him a nod. Carlos, you're on the high-altitude sections. You've got the steadiest hands. Think you can handle it? Carlos simply nodded. As the team dispersed, Marcus pulled Elena aside. Keep an eye on Jake. He's careless. We can't afford mistakes. Elena nodded. I'll keep him in line. The first few hours went smoothly. Elena directed the scaffolding, while Jake and Carlos applied the base coat. Priya monitored the drones, and Marcus oversaw everything. But as the sun climbed higher, the heat took its toll. Jake, feeling the strain, decided to take a shortcut. Instead of measuring the paint, he eyeballed it. Elena caught him mid-pour. Jake, what are you doing? Relax. Elena, I've done this 100 times. It's fine, Jake replied. Before Elena could respond, Carlos shouted, Stop. The color's off. Everyone froze, looking at the section Jake had painted. The gold was too dark, clashing with the design. Marcus stormed over. What the hell happened? Jake tried to play it off. It's not that bad. We can fix it. Fix it. Marcus's voice was like thunder. This is the Burj Al Arab. Elena stepped forward. We need to fix this now. If we don't, the entire project could be compromised. As the team scrambled to correct the mistake, a gust of wind swept through the site, sending a ladder crashing to the ground. From high above, Carlos shouted. His safety line was tangled, and he was stranded. Priya's voice was panicked. We've got another problem. The team's focus shifted instantly. Marcus barked orders, but the wind was picking up, and time was running out. As they rushed to save Carlos, the question hung in the air. Could they fix both the paint and the safety disaster before it was too late? Tangled lines. The wind howled around the Burj Al Arab, whipping through the scaffolding and sending loose tools clattering to the ground. Carlos clung to the metal beams high above, his safety line twisted and useless. Below, the team scrambled to respond, their earlier frustration over the paint mishap now replaced by sheer panic. Marcus barked orders, his voice cutting through the chaos. Priya, get the drones up there. See if we can secure a line to him. Elena, call emergency services. Just in case. Jake, grab the spare harness and get ready to climb if we need you. Priya's hands trembled as she adjusted the drone controls. I'm on it, but the wind's messing with the signal. I'm not sure I can get close enough. Elena was already on her phone, her voice steady but urgent. We need assistance at the Burj Al Arab. A worker is stranded on the scaffolding. Send help immediately. Jake, pale and visibly shaken, fumbled with the spare harness. I don't know if I can do this. Heights aren't exactly my thing. Marcus shot him a glare. You caused this mess, Jake. Now you're going to help fix it. Get it together. Carlos's voice echoed down, strained but calm. I'm okay for now, but I can't hold on forever. The wind's getting worse. Priya's drone buzzed upward, fighting against the gusts. She managed to get it close enough to Carlos to assess the situation. His safety line is wrapped around the scaffolding. If we can anchor another line, he can climb down. Marcus nodded. Jake, you're up. Take the harness and get to him. Jake hesitated, his usual bravado gone. What if I freeze up there? What if I make it worse? Elena stepped in, her voice firm but encouraging. You don't have a choice, Jake. Carlos needs you. We all do. Just focus on one step at a time. Taking a deep breath, Jake clipped the harness to his belt and began the climb. The wind tugged at him, and every step felt like a battle. Below, the team watched in tense silence, their breaths held as he inched closer to Carlos. Halfway up, Jake's foot slipped, and he dangled for a heart-stopping moment before regaining his footing. I'm okay, he shouted down, though his voice wavered. Just keep talking to me, okay? Elena called up, her voice steady. You're doing great, Jake. Just a little farther. Carlos is right above you. Finally, Jake reached Carlos. His hands were shaking as he secured the spare harness around his teammate. Okay, big guy. Let's get you down. Carlos gave a small nod, his usual stoicism cracking just enough to show his gratitude. Thanks, Jake. I owe you one. As the two began their descent, the wind seemed to ease slightly, as if the universe had decided to cut them a break. By the time they reached the ground, emergency services had arrived, but the team had already handled the crisis. Marcus clapped Jake on the back, a rare smile breaking through his stern demeanor. You did good, kid. Maybe there's hope for you yet. Jake managed a weak grin. Yeah, well, don't let it get around. I've got a reputation to maintain. Elena rolled her eyes but couldn't hide her relief. Let's just hope this is the last disaster of the day. Priya, still clutching the drone controller, sighed. We still have to fix the paint. And with the wind picking up again, I'm not sure how we're going to manage. Carlos, now safely on solid ground, spoke up for the first time since the ordeal. We'll figure it out. We always do. Ending hook. As the team regrouped, the sound of approaching thunder rumbled in the distance. Dark clouds gathered on the horizon, threatening to unleash a storm. Marcus looked up, his expression grim. We've got another problem. If that storm hits, we're done for. We need to fix the paint and secure the site before it's too late. The team exchanged uneasy glances. They had just survived one crisis, but another was looming. With time running out, the pressure was mounting. Could they pull together and finish the job before the storm arrived? Or would this project end in disaster? Storm warning. The sky darkened rapidly, the once golden horizon now swallowed by menacing clouds. The wind, which had momentarily eased, returned with a vengeance, howling like a wild beast. The Burj Al Arab stood defiant against the brewing storm, but the team knew their time was running out. They had to fix the paint mishap and secure the site before the storm hit, or risk losing everything. Marcus gathered the team in the makeshift shelter they'd set up at the base of the building. His voice was calm but urgent, a stark contrast to the chaos around them. Listen up. We've got maybe an hour before that storm hits. We need to fix the paint and secure the scaffolding. If we don't, this project is over, and so are our careers. Elena stepped forward, her eyes scanning the team. We can't redo the entire section Jake messed up, but we can blend it. If we use a lighter shade of gold and fade it into the existing paint, we can make it look intentional. It's risky, but it's our only shot. Jake, still shaken from his climb, nodded. I'll do whatever it takes. Just tell me what to do. Priya chimed in, her voice steady despite the tension. I can recalibrate the drones to work in the wind. They won't be perfect, but they can cover more ground faster than we can. Carlos, ever the silent pillar, simply said, I'll handle the scaffolding. It needs to be reinforced before the storm. Marcus nodded. All right, let's move. And remember, no mistakes. We don't get a second chance. The team sprang into action, each member focused on their task. Elena and Jake worked together on the paint, mixing the new shade with precision. The wind made it nearly impossible to keep the paint steady, but Elena's steady hands and Jake's newfound determination kept them on track. A little more to the left, Elena instructed, her voice barely audible over the wind. We need to blend it seamlessly. Jake nodded, his usual sarcasm replaced by intense focus. Got it. Just tell me when to stop. Meanwhile, Priya was on her knees, her fingers flying over the drone controls. The machines buzzed into the air, their cameras capturing every inch of the building. The drones are holding, but the wind's pushing them off course. I'll need to adjust their flight paths manually. Carlos, armed with heavy-duty straps and tools, scaled the scaffolding once again. The wind tugged at him, but his movements were deliberate and steady. He secured the loose beams, his strength and precision ensuring the structure would hold against the storm. As the team worked, the storm grew closer. Thunder rumbled, and the first drops of rain began to fall. Marcus stood at the base, his eyes darting between the team and the darkening sky. We're running out of time, he shouted. Wrap it up. Elena and Jake stepped back, their section of the building now a seamless blend of gold and white. It's not perfect, Elena admitted, but it's the best we can do. Priya landed the drones, her face pale but triumphant. The drones covered the upper sections. It's not ideal, but it'll hold. Carlos descended from the scaffolding, his hands raw from the effort. It's secure. It should withstand the storm. Just as the team regrouped, the storm hit with full force. Rain poured down in sheets, and the wind roared like a freight train. The Burj Al Arab stood tall, its newly painted surface glistening in the storm's fury. The team huddled in the shelter, their breaths heavy with exhaustion and relief. Marcus looked at each of them, his usual stern expression softened by pride. You all did good. Really good. But this isn't over yet. When the storm passes, we'll need to inspect the site and make sure everything held. Jake, soaked and shivering, managed to grin. Yeah, well, at least we didn't lose anyone this time. Elena rolled her eyes but couldn't hide her smile. Let's just hope the paint holds. If it doesn't, we're back to square one. Priya hugged herself against the cold, her voice quiet but determined. We'll figure it out. We always do. Carlos, ever the man of few words, simply nodded. We'll be ready. Ending hook. As the storm raged on, the team sat in silence, each lost in their thoughts. The Burj Al Arab loomed above them, a testament to their hard work and determination. But as the wind howled and the rain battered the shelter, a new sound cut through the chaos. A loud, ominous creak, followed by the sound of metal groaning. Marcus's head snapped up, his eyes wide. What was that? Priya's face went pale. It sounded like the scaffolding. The team exchanged uneasy glances. They had secured the structure, but the storm was stronger than anyone had anticipated. As the sound of twisting metal grew louder, the question hung in the air. Had they done enough to save the project and themselves? Chapter 4. Point. The sound of twisting metal echoed through the storm, sending a chill down the spines of everyone in the shelter. Marcus was the first to react, his voice cutting through the chaos. Everyone, stay here. I'll check the scaffolding. No way, Jake interjected, stepping forward. I'm coming with you. If something's wrong, you'll need backup. Elena grabbed a flashlight. I'm coming too. If the scaffolding's failing, we need to know exactly where and how bad it is. Priya hesitated, her hands still gripping the drone controller. I'll monitor from here. If anything shifts, I'll let you know. Carlos, already pulling on his gloves, nodded. I'll secure the base. If it starts to collapse, I can try to stabilize it. The team split up, their movements quick but deliberate. Marcus, Jake, and Elena ventured out into the storm, the rain stinging their faces as they approached the scaffolding. The wind howled, making it nearly impossible to hear each other, but they pressed on, their flashlights cutting through the darkness. The scaffolding groaned under the strain of the storm, its metal beams swaying dangerously. Marcus shone his light on the structure, his jaw tightening as he spotted the source of the noise. A critical support beam had bent, threatening to give way. There, he shouted, pointing. If that goes, the whole thing could come down. Elena squinted through the rain. We need to reinforce it. If we can anchor it to the building, we might be able to buy some time. Jake shook his head, his voice barely audible over the wind. In this weather, we'd be risking our lives. Marcus turned to him, his expression fierce. We don't have a choice, Jake. If the scaffolding collapses, the entire project is done. And if anyone's on it when it goes. Jake swallowed hard, then nodded. All right, tell me what to do. Back at the shelter, Priya's voice crackled over the radio. Guys, the drones are picking up movement on the east side. It looks like another beam is starting to buckle. Carlos, who had been working to secure the base of the scaffolding, cursed under his breath. I'll head over there. Priya, keep me updated. Priya's voice was tense. Be careful, Carlos. If that beam goes, the whole section could collapse. Marcus, Jake, and Elena worked frantically to anchor the bent beam to the building. The wind and rain made every movement a struggle, and the scaffolding creaked ominously with each step they took. Jake's hands trembled as he tightened the strap, his fear of heights battling his determination to help. Almost there, Elena shouted, her voice strained. Just one more. A loud crack cut her off, and the scaffolding shuddered violently. Jake lost his footing, his harness the only thing keeping him from falling. Marcus! Elena! It's going! Marcus grabbed Jake's arm, pulling him to safety just as the beam gave way. The scaffolding swayed precariously, but the anchors held, for now. Carlos, meanwhile, had reached the east side. The beam there was indeed buckling, and he knew he had only minutes to stabilize it. Using every ounce of his strength, he secured it with heavy-duty straps, his muscles burning with the effort. The wind roared in his ears, and the rain blurred his vision, but he didn't stop until the beam was as secure as he could make it. Back at the shelter, Priya watched the drones feed, her heart pounding. The scaffolding was holding, but barely. Guys, you need to get out of there. It's not safe. Marcus's voice came through the radio, calm but urgent. We're done here. Heading back now. The team regrouped in the shelter, soaked and exhausted but alive. The scaffolding still stood, though it groaned under the weight of the storm. Marcus looked at each of them, his expression a mix of pride and worry. We bought ourselves some time, but this isn't over. When the storm passes, we'll need to assess the damage and figure out our next move. Jake sank to the ground, his hands still shaking. I can't believe we made it through that. Elena sat beside him, her voice soft. We did it because we worked together. No one could have done it alone. Carlos nodded, his usual silence speaking volumes. Priya, still clutching the drone controller, managed a small smile. We're a team, and teams don't quit. Ending hooked. As the storm raged on, the scaffolding continued to groan, its fate uncertain. The team sat in silence, their minds racing with what-ifs. But as the first light of dawn began to break through the clouds, a new sound reached their ears, a faint, rhythmic thudding, like footsteps on metal. Marcus's head snapped up, his eyes narrowing. Do you hear that? The team froze, their exhaustion replaced by a fresh wave of tension. Someone, or something, was on the scaffolding. And with the structure barely holding, the question loomed. Who was out there, and what did they want? Unwelcome visitors. The rhythmic thudding grew louder, each step sending a faint vibration through the already unstable scaffolding. The team exchanged uneasy glances, their exhaustion momentarily forgotten. Marcus grabbed a flashlight and stepped toward the entrance of the shelter, his voice low but firm. "Stay here. I'll check it out." Elena shook her head, stepping forward. "Not a chance. We're in this together, remember?" Jake, still pale from the earlier ordeal, forced a weak grin. "Yeah, and if it's some kind of storm ghost, I want to see it." Carlos silently picked up a wrench, his expression unreadable but his stance ready. Priya stayed behind, her eyes glued to the drone feed. "Be careful. The scaffolding's barely holding. One wrong move, and it could collapse." The group moved cautiously toward the sound, their flashlights cutting through the rain-soaked darkness. The thudding stopped abruptly, replaced by the faint sound of voices. Marcus held up a hand, signaling the team to stop. "Who's there?" he called out, his voice sharp and commanding. For a moment, there was only the sound of the storm. Then, a figure emerged from the shadows, followed by two others. They were dressed in dark clothing, their faces obscured by hoods. One of them stepped forward, holding up his hands in a gesture of peace. "We're not here to cause trouble," the man said, his voice calm but firm. "We need your help." Marcus's eyes narrowed. "Who are you, and what are you doing on our site?" The man hesitated, then pulled back his hood, revealing a face marked by exhaustion and desperation. "My name is Amir. We're part of a maintenance crew from the marina. Our boat got caught in the storm, and we saw your lights. We thought we could find shelter here." Elena stepped forward, her voice softer but still cautious. "You climbed the scaffolding in this weather? Are you insane?" Amir shook his head. "We didn't have a choice. The waves were too high, and the boat was taking on water. We had to get off." Marcus exchanged a look with the team. "We can't let them stay here. The scaffolding's already unstable. The weight of 3 more people could bring it down." Jake frowned. "We can't just leave them out here, either. They'll die in this storm." Priya's voice crackled over the radio. "Guys, the drones are picking up more movement on the lower levels. It looks like the scaffolding's starting to shift." Carlos stepped forward, his voice calm but urgent. "We need to get them off the scaffolding. Now." Amir nodded. "We'll do whatever you say. Just help us." Marcus made a quick decision. "All right. We'll guide you down, but you need to move carefully. One wrong step, and we're all in trouble." The team sprang into action, guiding Amir and his crewmates down the shaky scaffolding. The wind and rain made every step a gamble, and the structure groaned ominously under the added weight. As they reached the lower levels, a loud crack echoed through the air, and the scaffolding shuddered violently. "Move!" Marcus shouted, pushing Amir and his crewmates toward the shelter. The team barely made it inside before a section of the scaffolding collapsed, crashing to the ground with a deafening roar. They stood in stunned silence, their breaths heavy with relief and fear. Amir looked at Marcus, his gratitude evident. "Thank you. You saved our lives." Marcus nodded, his expression grim. "Don't thank us yet. The storm's not over, and neither are our problems." Ending hook. As the team caught their breath, Priya's voice broke the silence. "Guys, the drones are picking up something else. There's something moving on the upper levels. It's not the wind." The team exchanged uneasy glances. If it wasn't the wind, and it wasn't Amir and his crew, then what, or who, was still out there? Shadows in the storm. The team huddled in the shelter, their eyes fixed on the drone feed Priya was monitoring. The screen showed a shadowy figure moving across the upper levels of the scaffolding, its movements deliberate and calculated. "That's not possible," Jake muttered, his voice tinged with disbelief. "No one else could have climbed up there in this storm." Elena frowned. "Unless they were already up there before the storm hit." Marcus's jaw tightened. We need to find out who that is and what they're doing. If they're tampering with the scaffolding, they could bring the whole thing down. Amir stepped forward, his expression serious. Let me help. I owe you for saving us. I'll go with you. Marcus hesitated, then nodded. All right, but stay close and do exactly as I say. The team, now joined by Amir, ventured back into the storm. The rain had eased slightly, but the wind still howled, making communication difficult. They moved cautiously, their flashlights scanning the scaffolding for any sign of the mysterious figure. Priya's voice came through the radio, guiding them. The figure's on the west side, near the top. Be careful, the scaffolding's unstable there. As they climbed higher, the figure came into view. It was a man, dressed in black and carrying a small bag. He was crouched near one of the support beams, his hands moving quickly as if he was working on something. Marcus called out, his voice sharp. Hey! Stop right there. The man froze, then turned to face them. His face was obscured by a mask, but his eyes glinted with defiance. Without a word, he turned and bolted, disappearing into the maze of scaffolding. After him, Marcus shouted, leading the chase. The team pursued the man, their movements slowed by the unstable structure and the relentless wind. Jake stumbled, nearly losing his footing, but Amir caught him, pulling him back to safety. Thanks, Jake muttered, his voice shaky. Amir nodded. Stay focused. We can't afford any mistakes. As they closed in on the man, he suddenly stopped, turning to face them. In his hand was a small device, its red light blinking ominously. Marcus's eyes widened. Is that a detonator? The man smirked, his voice barely audible over the wind. You should have stayed out of this. Before anyone could react, he pressed a button on the device. A loud explosion echoed through the air, and the scaffolding shook violently. The team scrambled for cover as debris rained down around them. When the dust settled, the man was gone, and a gaping hole had been torn in the scaffolding. Marcus cursed under his breath. He's trying to sabotage the project. We need to stop him before he does any more damage. Ending hook. As the team regrouped, Priya's voice came through the radio, urgent and panicked. Guys, the drones just picked up another device. It's on the east side, and it's counting down. You've got less than 10 minutes. The team exchanged horrified glances. The saboteur wasn't done yet, and time was running out. Race against time. The team moved quickly, their exhaustion forgotten as adrenaline took over. Marcus barked orders, his voice cutting through the chaos. Elena, Jake, with me. We'll handle the device. Carlos, Amir, secure the rest of the scaffolding. Priya, guide us from the shelter. The group split up, each member focused on their task. Marcus, Elena, and Jake climbed toward the east side, their flashlights scanning the scaffolding for the device. Priya's voice guided them, her tone tense but steady. It's about 20 feet ahead, near the base of the support beam. Be careful. It's rigged to blow if you tamper with it. Jake's hands trembled as he gripped the scaffolding. Why does this keep happening to us? Can't we just have one normal day? Elena shot him a look. Focus. Jake. We don't have time for your jokes. Marcus reached the device first, his eyes narrowing as he studied it. The red light blinked steadily, counting down the seconds. 5 minutes, he muttered. We need to disarm it. Elena knelt beside him, her hands steady despite the tension. I've seen something like this before. If we cut the right wire, we can stop the countdown. Jake hovered nervously behind them. And if we cut the wrong one? Elena didn't answer, her focus entirely on the device. She carefully examined the wires, her breath shallow. This one, she said finally, pointing to a blue wire. Cut it. Marcus handed her a pair of wire cutters, his expression grim. Do it. Elena hesitated for a fraction of a second, then snipped the wire. The blinking light stopped, and the device fell silent. The team let out a collective breath, their relief palpable. "We did it," Jake said, his voice shaky. "We actually did it." But their celebration was short-lived. Priya's voice crackled over the radio, urgent and panicked. "Guys, the drones just picked up another device. It's on the west side, and it's already counting down. You've got less than 5 minutes." Marcus cursed under his breath. "He's playing with us. We need to split up." Elena nodded. "I'll handle the next one. You two stay here and make sure this area is secure." As Elena hurried toward the west side, Marcus and Jake worked to stabilize the scaffolding. The storm had weakened the structure, and every movement sent a shudder through the metal beams. Carlos and Amir joined them, their faces grim. "We've secured as much as we can," Carlos said. "But if another device goes off, it's over." Marcus nodded. "Let's just hope Elena can stop it in time." Ending hook. As the team worked to stabilize the scaffolding, a loud crash echoed through the air. They turned to see a section of the structure collapsing, sending debris raining down. Elena's voice came through the radio, panicked and strained. "I'm trapped. The scaffolding's coming down, and I can't reach the device." The team exchanged horrified glances. The countdown was still ticking, and Elena was in danger. With time running out, they faced an impossible choice. Save Elena or stop the device before it destroyed everything. The final countdown. The team froze, their minds racing as Elena's panicked voice echoed through the radio. The scaffolding groaned ominously, the storm and the saboteur's devices pushing it to its breaking point. Marcus made a split-second decision. "Jake, Carlos, with me. We're getting Elena. Amir, Priya, you handle the device." Amir nodded, his expression determined. "We'll stop it. Just get her out of there." The team split up, each group moving with urgency. Marcus, Jake, and Carlos climbed toward Elena, their flashlights cutting through the darkness. The scaffolding swayed dangerously with every step, but they pressed on, driven by the need to save their teammate. Elena's voice guided them, her tone strained but steady. "I'm pinned under a beam. I can't move, but I can see the device. It's got 3 minutes left." Marcus cursed under his breath. "Hold on, Elena. We're almost there." Meanwhile, Amir and Priya worked to disarm the second device. Priya guided him through the process, her voice calm but urgent. "Cut the green wire. It should stop the countdown." Amir hesitated, his hands trembling. "What if I'm wrong?" "You're not," Priya said firmly. "Just do it." Amir took a deep breath, then snipped the wire. The blinking light stopped, and the device fell silent. He let out a shaky breath. "It's done. The device is disarmed." Priya's voice came through the radio, relief evident. "The second device is down. Elena, hang on. They're almost there." Marcus, Jake, and Carlos reached Elena, finding her trapped under a heavy beam. Carlos immediately went to work, using his strength to lift the beam while Marcus and Jake pulled Elena free. "You're okay," Marcus said, his voice firm but reassuring. "We've got you." Elena nodded, her face pale but determined. "The saboteur, he's still out there. We need to stop him before he does any more damage." As the team regrouped, a loud crash echoed through the air. They turned to see the saboteur climbing down the scaffolding, his movements quick and deliberate. Marcus's eyes narrowed. "He's not getting away. Let's move." The team gave chase, their exhaustion forgotten as they focused on catching the saboteur. The storm raged around them, but they pressed on, driven by a mix of anger and determination. As they closed in on the saboteur, he turned to face them, his eyes glinting with defiance. "You're too late," he said, his voice cold. "This project is finished." Before anyone could react, he pressed a button on a remote in his hand. A series of explosions rocked the scaffolding, sending debris flying in all directions. The team scrambled for cover as the structure began to collapse around them. Ending hook. As the dust settled, the team emerged from the wreckage, battered but alive. The saboteur was gone, and the Burj Al Arab stood scarred but intact. Marcus looked at his team, his expression a mix of pride and determination. "We're not done yet," he said. "We've got a job to finish." The team nodded, their resolve unshaken. The storm had tested them, and the saboteur had tried to break them, but they were still standing. And as the first light of dawn broke through the clouds, they knew one thing for certain: they weren't giving up.